Hello. This audience is definitely better than what we have in Finland. We don't smile, so. Just before I start, I'll just take a few minutes and ask a few questions. Do we have any number of people from the Nordics? Finland, Sweden, I know there are Danish people here, but anyone from Finland or Sweden? Okay, that's good. I know everyone will smile then. Hello, I'm going to be talking today about Ember being for everyone. I initially planned this talk to be very technical, but after the talks yesterday, I kind of realized that I needed to shake it up a little bit and try to talk to the people who I really teach. So it's going to be a bit different. It's going to be more of an interaction with you. I'll be asking questions, and just kindly indulge me, please. So let's begin. Okay. Okay, I'll just use my hands then. Yeah, it was supposed to work, but you know, it works on local at least. Okay, hello. My name is Kenigbolo Meya Steven, and I'm going to be telling you about the Code Afrique story. You can find me on Twitter on Expensive Stevie. Don't ask me why it's expensive. It's something that's stock from 2010. One horrible mistake I made, and I have to live with it, so. Okay, this is EmberConf. We start counting from 0. My name is Kenigbolo, and I'm going to teach you how to pronounce this because every time I go somewhere, people find it difficult to pronounce. But it's very easy. That's it. Kenigbolo. Can everyone try that? Thank you very much. You have no idea how delighted I am. Okay, that's how my name is pronounced, but you can always call me Steven. That's totally fine. I work at Bcaster as the front-end engineering lead. Thanks to them, they bought me flights to be here, so I'm super grateful. What we're going to be talking about today. First of all, I'm going to tell you what Code Afrique is all about, why we do what we do, the team behind Code Afrique, teaching JavaScript, not with Ember, Ember Power, how Ember improved our students' grasp, example Ember concept for beginners, and lastly, we'll talk about moving forward. So, what on earth is Code Afrique? This is quite interesting. So, a few years ago, after I finished my bachelor's, I went to Nigeria. I studied in Ghana, and then I went off to Nigeria to do the national service. It's a 3-week training. It's like a military training, but pretty much when you're in IT or medical field, all of that, you get posted to teach in a school, right? So I go off. After 3 weeks of this intense training, I'm sent to a high school. It's secondary school. Sorry, I'm quite Brit, so. I get sent to the secondary school to teach them computer science. I get to the school. The first day I get into the class, I discovered that there are no windows. I discovered that the students have never seen a computer before. And I was supposed to teach them computer science. So it was a bit surprising for me, but I realized there were no projectors. I came to understand that I've been living in a shell myself, right? So I go home the next day, I get my laptop, I take to school, and they literally queued up to actually touch a computer for the first time in their life. I went home and I told my mother, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going back to London. I can't deal with this, you know. Of course, I packed my bag and went to Estonia. In 2015, I got to Estonia, and that was when it became absolutely real for me. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Code Afrique is nothing fancy. We're just a regular bunch of software engineers giving back to the underrepresented community. What we do and why. Would you believe if I told you there was a modern country with approximately 1 million residents where between 2015 and 2016 had just about 20 black software engineers? Anyone who thinks this is a lie, just let me see your hands. Okay. Anyone who thinks this is true, let me see your hands. Okay, this is awesome because I think then we're all on the same page. I'm not going to mention the country because in 2019, I can comfortably tell you that we have made significant progress with what we do, and there are more people of color actually as software engineers there. Before I go into telling you about the team, I'm just going to give you a small introduction about why Code Afrique started off. In 2015, I went to Estonia to do my master's in software engineering. In 2016, I started as a software engineer. And after my experience, I really wanted to network with people of color in the country. Estonia is a small country, but if you know about Skype, you should know about Estonia, at least before Microsoft screwed us over, pretty much. Sorry about that if there's anyone from Microsoft here. So I discovered that we had this small community, and I could literally count the people of color who were software engineers at that time on my hands. So I tried to get in touch with the Association of African Students in Estonia, and I discovered that there were a lot of people who would have loved to actually be software engineers. Problem, however, is that they didn't have the opportunity to. So they could have probably been one of those students who were in the school I served. And this was the reason why we started Code Afrique, to help these people actually become whatever they want to be. Which is why that song basically said, I know I can be whatever I want to be. A lot of the times, Code Afrique, I'm always the face, but behind the scene, I'm probably not the most active person. The people I'm going to show you today are those who actually lead the Code Afrique community. And I'm here today. On Friday, there's going to be a class, and there are going to be people teaching there. His name is Gabriel. He's a senior software engineer who works at Coin Gaming in Estonia. And he has a master's from the University of Tartu. His name is Sunday Ayanbode Ayandoku. He's a senior software engineer, works as a full-stack software engineer at Bold Commerce, just up north in Canada. And he has a master's in software engineering from the University of Tartu. His name is Victor. He's a senior backend engineer. He works as a backend engineer with me. Of course, I took him to Finland alongside. And he has a master's in software engineering also. So pretty much what happened was, when we got to the university, we discovered that we were far and few in between. And when I decided to start Code Afrique, I decided to look for people who had started the software engineering discipline to actually have proper hands on board to teach people. That's how we came together. We never knew each other from anywhere, but we managed to craft something really nice. So teaching JavaScript, the first thing I've noticed is that preconceptions are pure evil. A lot of the times we say people are worried about learning how to program. People are scared, or we just say it's plain difficult, right? A lot of the times, it's not because it's difficult. It's because we have put the preconception in the mind that programming is actually difficult. And I'm saying this because I'm pretty sure, even if we do not want to admit it, some of us have junior engineers in our companies, and in our code reviews, we make it seem really difficult for them. So you should maybe search, deep down, and probably you can relate to this. I'm pretty sure the junior engineers, even if they don't say it, would actually admit that sometimes code reviews just make it seem like coding is so difficult for them. And it's not just that. It's also the communication. When you discuss with them, when you tell them about things, and you're talking to someone who just started programming 4 months ago, for example, and you're going all technical jargons, he's not going to understand what you're saying. You're not communicating to him. He's going to nod and say, yeah, I know all of this. He's going to nod and say, yes, oh yeah, I get you, but deep down, he's not getting it. As huge as the JavaScript community out there is, there's no guaranteed way of ensuring people grasp the concept. This isn't a fault with JavaScript, but rather due to the fact that people learn differently. Some people are visual learners. Some people actually prefer to listen to podcasts. Some people like to read. Some people like watching tutorials. People learn differently, so it's always difficult to find a way to actually reach out to them and teach them, which is why we prefer the in-class method, because it gives them a mentor-mentee relationship. That's why we don't call them in Code Afrique students, we call them mentees. So our process of teaching is quite easy. It's a three-step process, and we have it as a repetitive loop. We go over it over and over again and make sure that everyone actually understands it before we move to anything other. We start with variables. These are actually the fundamentals. At the end of this, I'm going to actually point out why. And then we go to objects, and we teach them about objects. And afterwards, we go to functions. I know if you come from a CS background like me, you start thinking, well, you're not spending so much time teaching them about data structures and algorithms and all of that. I believe we have a lot of front-end engineers here. So I'm going to ask a question. And I want you to answer me honestly. How many people here, as front-end engineers, have needed to traverse a binary tree? Just, OK, good. So there are quite a few hands. Now, how many people have actually needed to traverse a binary tree in their job as front-end engineers working on an Ember app? You see how few those hands are? This is exactly why we don't so focus on that. At the end of the day, you're trying to get people into the system, not trying to frustrate them out of the system. It's important. I understand this, and I know that these fundamentals are actually important. But what's more important is making them comfortable in the ecosystem. If you give them a soft landing into it, they get curious, and then they want to know more, and they start digging in. If you throw a lot of things at them, a lot of core computer science concepts, for example, a lot of our students come from very different backgrounds. Some work as cleaners. Some studied environmental engineering. A lot of the concepts would never make sense to them. And if you want to give them a soft introduction to the software engineering world, probably that's not a good idea. So the problems, usually, when teaching JavaScript, framework. This is the single most important problem we have in teaching JavaScript, framework. I'm pretty sure if I need to start listing frameworks and packages, we would not be done today. But this is a fundamental problem we have. The next one, yeah, that's it, framework. There's so much framework out there that sometimes, it makes it impossible. You try to stick to the basics, but they go online and then they find something and they come back to school the next weekend and they're talking about some other stuff, and then you need to spend so much time trying to tell them to get their mind off it and then other stuff. You try to get them back to the basics. And the last and most important one, as you guessed, of course, that's it. Framework. I don't know, as much as I love Ember and all the other amazing frameworks out there, some of them are just a pain in the ass for us when we need to teach. So, what are the typical pitfalls we encountered? So at Afrique, we try a system where, after getting through all the fundamentals, we start taking frameworks to teach. Since this is an EmberConf, I'm not going to mention the name of the framework, but by the time I start going on, those of you who know would know. It's that framework where the first version was good and the other ones that followed were just, you know what I mean. Yes, I'm not going to mention the name. So lazy loading. When you get into frameworks and you want to teach people about lazy loading, in this one particular framework we used, it was a headache. And if you have used that framework, not version 1, but the ones that followed, I'm pretty sure you can appreciate how complex it is. You try to get into it, and even for someone with a master's in software engineering, it becomes, you're trying to explain something very simple. The concept should be simple enough. Computer science concept should be simple enough. But when you make frameworks so complicated, it makes it difficult for people to teach. Just what I mentioned. Too many computer science concepts. It's front-end development. A lot of the times, like you just saw, they're not going to use it for the rest of their lives anyways. Frameworks are supposed to be beginner-friendly. We're complaining that we don't have enough people in tech, but then we go ahead to make frameworks that will discourage people from getting into tech. it seems to be a front-end framework designed for back-end devs. I know this for sure because before becoming a front-end lead, I actually used to be a back-end dev myself. And the way that framework works, if you work in back-end, it makes a lot of sense. If you work in front-end, maybe not so much sense. The bitter truth, it was not just designed for beginners. The first version was beginner-friendly to an extent. The others that followed were just not beginner-friendly. And as much as I will hate to say this, it absolutely sucks. The last thing you want is to get into a class and try to teach people and then find yourself in a situation where it's almost impossible to explain because you know that they're so young and tender in terms of IT that you would probably complicate their knowledge, and that's not what you want. So there are tons more of this, but I will just talk about this 4 that I've mentioned. And in fact, I'm not going to talk more on it, so it doesn't seem like a jibe to that community, but I'm pretty sure maybe 1 or 2 people from that community are watching this stream. So it's like an advice. You know yourself, wherever you are watching this, and please try to make your frameworks more beginner-friendly. So, Ember power. This is the part I'm most interested in. Convention can be an absolute game changer. The beauty of our success with Ember is heavily based on convention over configuration. I know that there are a lot of opinions about this. Some people are not so fine with it. Some people are fine with it. And that's OK. It's totally fine. But for people who were getting into IT, for people who do not have an IT background, it's actually important that they can follow a set of instructions. This is absolutely important because then, after a while, they get comfortable with what they do, and they get curious about how it works. And curiosity will make them to dig in. And this is how you actually will get people in your community contributing. But if it's so complex, then maybe not. So now I'm going to play this video. It was made by one of our mentees. What you see there was made by one of our students. And this actually explains pretty much how they feel about a lot of things. So at this point, I want to say to everyone who has been involved in the Ember docs and guides, I say a big thank you. You're all the MVP. Can we give a round of applause to the Ember guides team? What you do is so much appreciated from us at Code Afrique. You make our lives easy. You make the lives of our mentees really easy. We really appreciate you, and we're really grateful. So, our wins thanks to Ember. This section was supposed to be very technical, but I kind of decided to just make a summary because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people here who might be very new to tech and might be interested in getting into Ember. And if I make this very technical, then maybe it's not so interesting for you. So we're just going to go through a couple of things. And actually, the first thing I'm going to mention is something that Nullvox Populi mentioned yesterday. Routers. Absolutely. So if you have worked with other frameworks, it's always the case that your router has to be an external package. You have to get it in, you know. Sometimes you need to do some configurations and all of that. So if you're thinking about getting into Ember, you don't need to worry about routing. It's just taken care of for you out of the box. If you want to learn more about it, just follow the convention, and then later on you can spend time digging. But basically, this is how it works. It just works. You know, you don't need to worry so much about how it works. You can worry about that later. The reason why I also wanted to mention this was because there are certain core concepts that work in the routers in Ember that enabled our students to convert an Ember app into a Node.js, basically with Express and handlebars. It's the same convention when they can actually follow certain rules. When you need to introduce something new to them, you just need to introduce a new set of rules, and they can follow that and actually build on it. The second one, templates, handlebars. That's why you saw the big thing there. So handlebars is pure love. I've never had to pull rank on my team before. The first time I had to pull rank was to make sure we used handlebars. Yep. It doesn't matter what we're building. I don't care. This is probably the best templating language out there. The way you use templates to explain data binding in Ember is quite beautiful. It's quite easy. It's quite straightforward. Even if the person is a rookie, they can totally relate to it. This is why it gave us a lot of wins, because having our students move from Ember to learning something new was always easy. They could actually understand the concepts without having to go with complex stuff. And lastly, convention. People have different thoughts about this, right? The exact reason why Ember wins for us is because the focus is on convention over configuration. There's less will reinventing, no need for unnecessary code. You focus on your app's core functionality and features, which basically means productivity. How many people can remember the first time they wrote their first line of code that actually worked? So many people can't remember. That's interesting. OK. That excitement you get when you write your first line of code without having to see. OK, maybe a better question would be, how many people remember the first error they had and how they felt? Exactly. When you write an Ember app and you follow the convention, you get it up and running. This is how it works. This is how it's supposed to work. Except you decide to deviate from the convention, you probably would not get errors. That joy that students get when they actually get into this is what makes Ember win for us. This is why, despite the fact that we always teach different frameworks, Ember is always our beginner entry. And it will always be like that, as far as I have my way. So lastly, simplify concept explanation. I just wanted to give you a general overview of how we would normally teach someone. We try not to use technical jargons. We basically try to explain things like they're just normal things. So my advice is, please, in your work environment, in your daily life, when you encounter beginners, try to explain things to them without technical jargons. Whether we like it or not, some of us here do it in our offices. When we talk to junior devs, we just assume that they know everything. Newsflash, they don't. You actually don't even know everything. So please, when you discuss with them, try to use less aggressive terms. It helps them, because when you use less aggressive terms, they can actually relate, and then they could actually ask questions. But when you go, say you get someone who is a waiter, she gets into the class, and then you start talking about web servers when you want to actually explain how your URL actually redirects to something. She doesn't know what the web server is. She's not going to get what you mean, right? That's how it works. So let's take this code. It's quite simple. This is your typical route.js file for those who have not written the code of Ember, maybe. So this is basically how I would explain this. It's a route.js file. It's a router file. When you hit your web browser, you request a page, it comes here. If you doubt it, you put the console.log and write, it's here. That's how our students do it. It's here. And they find it there. It comes here, and yeah, from here on, Ember decides how the magic happens. Basically, you have this.route about, right? So it points, and you have the about there, and the convention is /about. It's going to point to a routes/about file, where you write whichever data information transfer you need to do. And then you write all your HTML in template/about.hbs. Now, if you want to write 10,000 pages, you stick to this concept, it will work. This is how Ember is built. This is the convention. This is what we teach. This is how we teach it. We try to make people understand that it's just a set of instructions. There's the route.js file, and then you need your route/about. The about comes from what you define in this.route, and then you write your HTML, what the client sees, inside your template/about. And this is it. It could be as simple as this. If I tried to explain this to you in the other framework, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't get done today. So, moving forward. Code Afrique has been rebranded to Reload. We changed it to Reload because we're trying to shake things up a little bit. When we started, we focused purely on less represented groups, and they were mostly African students, right? People or Africans living in Estonia at that time. Okay, someone is poking me. We've rebranded to Reload, and moving forward, I was actually going to say what our targets were, but I listened, I don't know, is Melanie here? Awesome. I listened to her talk yesterday, and I want to say, Melanie, I'm very sorry that we have never focused on accessibility, and we actually were thinking of moving forward towards something else, but after your talk yesterday, I think moving forward we'll be working with accessibility. That's the next thing we're going to teach people. And the other thing we're trying to do with our mentees is to give them some kind of publicity, get them out there. And just a random question. How many people here have actually designed a tech curriculum before? Okay. You know how difficult it is, right? You know how complicated it is. How many people actually mentor? I know Ember has a great community for mentorship, but how many people here actually do mentorship? Okay, that's quite a few hands. Awesome. Now, the most important question. How many of you open your mentees up to opportunities? Yeah, now the hands are very few. And this is it. This is where I actually have a fundamental problem with. It's one thing to actually teach people and mentor people, but at the end of the day, you need to open them up to opportunities. You can teach them all you like. It doesn't matter. You still need to open them up to opportunities, else they're going to be stuck in the shadow. You need to help them go through, you need to do mock interviews with them, help them out with things. If you have openings somewhere, you should. I can tell you for sure because it's important to back your words with actions. The front-end team that I lead is totally made up of people from underrepresented groups. Every single one of us. So I think it's important that when you mentor people, you actually open them up to opportunities. I'm going to show two mentees. One, we have mentee groups. The first person I'm going to show is the first person who came into my mentor group, and the last person I'm going to show is the last person who just came into my mentor group. And before we begin, I want to thank a few people. Association of African Students in Estonia. They were the part of the driving force, and that's why we managed to get so far. The Tallinn University of Technology, I lectured there for a semester, and they actually gave us a facility to teach. So we don't pay rent, we don't have to worry about projectors and everything, we just go and teach pretty much. Mector Innovation Institute, this is the building where we actually work, this is where we do whatever we do, and we're so totally grateful to them. Verif OU, I'm super grateful to these guys also. I worked there a few years ago, and I started Code Afrique while I was working there. And they were totally okay letting me go off on Friday early so that I could go teach. I'm super grateful. And Bcaster, where I currently lead the engineering team, and I have people from the company actually volunteer to come teach. We're in Finland, but we still go to Estonia to teach, so I'm super grateful to these guys. And now I'll introduce my first mentee. His name is Habib. He's based in Lagos, Nigeria. And those are his information. He also writes articles. He has written for CodeShip, and if I'm not mistaken, he has also written for, okay, I can't remember now, but yeah. And this is my last mentee. Her name is Timi Akane. She's based in Abuja, Nigeria, and that's her Twitter handle. She joined my mentee pack about 2 weeks ago, so right now we're still working on objects with her. But she has progressed a lot, and I'm doing this so that they know that I'm super proud of them and how far they've come. And lastly, who can tell me if they've seen this before? If you've seen this before, just raise your hand. Awesome. Oh my God. Thank God. OK, so basically, this is me about signing out. This is a phrase from South Africa. It's all about sharing what has been bothering you for a long time, mostly things you usually will have nobody to talk about. The reason why I put this here is because I want to appeal to all of you. Right now, I'm going to make a post on Twitter with this exact photo, and I want you to write the things that you have been worried about the most as an Ember developer. This is important because we have a lot of students, and they're not just based in Estonia. Some of them are based in Nigeria. Some people are up at 8:30 in Accra, Ghana, trying to watch this talk. One of the things that help our developers, the people we try to train, our mentees, is that when they hear from fellow industry experts and industry professionals that can talk about, oh, I don't remember the array.reduce, for example, function. This is like a motivation. They actually know that these same people you look up to are still ordinary people like you. So I'm going to do this right now as we are here. And I think I saved the tweet already, so please, my handle is Expensive Steven. We have a lot of students who will be watching this space, so kindly write about your fears, write about the things you wish you knew when you were a junior developer, a young developer, or if you don't have anything to write, just write something encouraging for them. It's all about empathy. And lastly, thank you. But before I go, I'm going to teach you a Finnish word. So, as I mentioned, I live in Finland. I know that Kenneth might not like me to mention this, but we are the happiest country in the world for the second time running. So we're super proud of ourselves. We're very humble. We don't talk about it, but yeah. To say thank you in Finnish, you say kiitos, like kiitos. So can I have everyone say that? Thank you very much. You have no idea what that means to me, because if this was Finland, no one was going to say anything. So thank you very much. I'm super grateful.